Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. This is What's Next Wednesday, January 7th. And I am Ken Oxidine, and we are here. It goes on with it, how it works, and, just some pathways that's going to allow individuals to get to where they want to go. It's a great quote that I love, and especially when we talk about NCAA is a special place for me in all those places because of the fact that I was an athlete. Athletics gave me an opportunity to really get into college, to pay for college, and then all those other things. But the biggest thing, Gary Payton, he said, everybody wants a scholarship, but everybody doesn't want to do what it takes to earn it. Again, that's a great quote that is just awesome when you're really thinking about those and everyone that's on the panel. They've been in the athletic realm in college, and they know that it's something that you just it's amazing the stuff that we did to play the sport that we loved. And tonight we just want to touch on some different spaces that's going to allow us to navigate some of the things that's going on in the athletic world. This program is designed to support students and families as a plan for life after high school, from finding the right fit and navigating financial aid in athletics. And I was privy to be a Gatorade All-American. When I came out, I was a number 8th recruit in the country, and it's crazy the navigating all the parts. And one of the things that we sometimes forget, especially now, but it's not the academics have changed from a standpoint of now, if you're not top 50, top 100 in the athletic program, you're not starting where you want to start at a lot of times. And so with that being said, when you look at the making the grade, and this is something that I want to touch on, and we'll touch on different pieces as we go through this, but as you look at the percentages of individuals that or the grades that you have to make it and to be recruited. When you look at 4.0, 94%, it drops all the way down to 8% when you got 2.0. Now, can you get into college and all other spaces? Of course you can. But the thing is now, because of the landscape of college sports, most athletes are going to start off on a Division I, Division II, and it doesn't matter, because right now you look at Ole Miss. The quarterback at Ole Miss was a Division II national championship quarterback. And so now, because of the way things happen, you can, navigate it. But the bigger part is that academically, you're going to have to be strong, because these smaller schools, a lot of times, and there are other pathways to help you, but these smaller schools, their academic rigor is very different. So we have to make sure we tell our athletes, we tell the individuals that are trying to get in that space, you have to make sure you're staying on top of your academic pieces and parts. But as we look, across the country, it's all colleges. You got all of your state colleges that have sports, and then your HBCUs. But one of the areas that we're going to touch on today is that sometimes we forget is our junior colleges. And now with and Hope would be one of our contributors today. She'll be to talk to us today a little bit about how that affects your college. And then Troy Taylor is someone also that navigating those spaces in those areas that's going to allow us to understand, some of those pieces a little better. So those are the things that we're going to jump into tonight. Now we're getting ready to jump into everything that we got going tonight. The bigger part is just listening, taking notes, and any question that you may have, raise your hand at the time that you have to do it and that you want to ask a question. Put your questions in the question area, and we'll answer any question that we can at that time. Our panelist tonight is Troy Taylor. He's a postgraduate offensive and defensive line coach from Fork Union Military Academy, and a former high school head coach here in Central Virginia. He's had some college coaching experience as well. We've got Hope Clark. She is a head women's soccer coach at Dayton State College with over 20 years in collegiate coaching experience. Then Brendan Hill. He's the assistant athletic director for student athletic development and in at San Diego State. So we got a great panelist going on. Troy, tell me a little bit more about yourself and all those pieces, and let me as we continue to move along, big dog.
Yeah, I'm from Chesterfield, Virginia, just like Ken. I went to LC Bird High School. I went to Clinch Valley College. It's called UVA Wise now, and played NAIA football. We always say, there's guys that play, and there's guys that get guys ready to play. I was the guy that got guys ready to play. Ken Oxendine was the guy that played. So everybody's got a role. Everybody's got a job. We tell our guys at Fort Union Military Academy, the game's changed. Some guys today will go Division II that 10 years ago would have gone Division I. And if you think you're D1, then go prove it. And we got guys, one guy starting at North Carolina A&T right now at defensive end, and he left here and did a semester at Shepherd D2, and then got in the portal, and he started Division I this season. So, this is a new time that we're navigating, and blessed to be on here. Thank you, Ken.
Hope.
Hi, Hope Clark. Originally from Louisiana. I actually was at Virginia Tech the same time that Ken was there. So I played women's soccer there at Virginia Tech, and really have been all over the country due to the game. I've coached at every single level except for Division III, and have international experience with U.S. Soccer and with Guyana. So currently the head women's soccer coach at Daytona State College. So in the NCAA. Back-to-back national champions, had to put that in there. But yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks for having me on here, Ken. Looking forward to it.
Love it, love it. Brendan?
Always good to fellowship with some fellow Hokies here and some fellow Virginians, but my name's Brendan Hill. I'm originally from Newport News, Virginia. I played for Hall of Fame football coach in high school named Tommy Reeman Sr., who happened to also coach Michael Vick, and went on to play for Hall of Fame college football coach Frank Beamer and Bud Foster. Kim was a strength and conditioning GA, I believe, or assistant when I was in school. But that Hokie brotherhood is strong. And my day-to-day here at San Diego State is heavily involved in NIL, revenue sharing, contracts, NIL compliance, all that type of stuff. But also I oversee our life skills program, making sure our student athletes are set up and prepared for life after their careers and things like that. So very fulfilling role, and happy to be here to talk to you guys tonight.
Awesome. Appreciate all of y'all for being here tonight. Let's just jump right into it. Let's start with the families. A lot of times they overlook readiness. And so, Troy, when you hear families here, and especially because you've been in that high school coaching space as well. When you hear families hear the term recruit ready all the time, from your perspective, what does that actually mean, and how can you really, piece it together for our families?
Yeah. You guys, I think were recruited by Jim Cavanaugh. Mm-hmm. He's one of the greatest recruiters of all time. There's three things they look for. The eyeball test. Ken, I remember you in high school. You passed the eyeball test. Do you look like a guy on their team? And if you do not look like a guy on their team, then you better be special. And there's not many special people. So that's the first test. Then the next one is the film. Does the film pop? What do you do that's special? You need to separate yourself, on your highlight film. And then the third one probably is the grades test, But if you don't look the part and don't play the part, but you got to have A's and B's, man. You can't limit yourself. The better your grades, the more opportunities you'll have. So, to be ready, you probably need to check off all those boxes. That's what I got, Ken.
Yeah. And Hope, and what about yourself? When you're looking at, recruits in that same space, what does that mean for you to allow students and their parents? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think it's, we're in a different pathway just because our jobs are not only to take care of Daytona State and to compete and be successful at the national level, but then our placement moving on. So we really look at a lot of different things. What is their readiness from an academic standpoint? And then how can we help continue to prepare them academically to ensure the best packages as they move on and make them as recruitable as possible to their four-year institutions after us. So, I mean, we're definitely looking at the athletic piece, like Troy said, there's that, there's the eye test, there's, you've got to have the technical execution, the physical execution, be able to play a role in our program, and I always say out recruit myself daily. So if I'm out recruiting myself daily, then my program's moving forward. But I think there's a bigger piece to us, and that's the platform that we're in this space, is to continue that preparation, that development, to ensure that they are the best product possible moving into their four-year institution.
Awesome. And that was, in the same space, and all those sports, there's all those parts and pieces, and those are things that you have to understand. And Brendan, what do you see any of that part when those recruits come in, and do you touch any of those individuals, and do you have any space in that realm?
Yeah, I meet with pretty much the high school and transfer portal recruits for almost all of our sports, from men's basketball. Our men's basketball team was just in the national championship a couple years ago, and our football team here is coming off 9 wins, but also track and field, women's soccer, you name it. Because of my position as an assistant AD, I meet with all those families. And what I would say is it definitely varies by sport, how coaches are approaching high school talent acquisition and versus their portal strategy. So some sports may be a little more impatient with their high school development, where if they bring you out of high school and you aren't a hit for them, if you aren't a contributor for them in your first 2 years, they'll give you a red shirt, they'll give you a freshman year. And then if you aren't ready to contribute by then, they're probably looking to replace you most likely in the portal, but maybe out recruit you in high school as well. And we're seeing a lot of student athletes and families being asked to move along, where the coaches are being transparent and say, hey, I don't really see you having an opportunity to contribute here. Your best option is probably to find somewhere else to play. And it's a very tough conversation, but it is a business now. That's the one thing I would probably say, is that more than ever, it's always been a business, but more than ever, as student athletes and as families, the more eyes wide open you come into these situations and you are prepared for all the potential scenarios, the better, once again, prepared you'll be to navigate whatever curveball or obstacle is thrown to you by a coach or the playing time or injury or something that's out of your control. So.
Yeah, and it's crazy you said it, because I was just talking to an individual just the other day, and a friend of his was at a division FCS school. He went to go visit a FBS school, and he was like one of the top kids in FCS. And when the coach saw him, the coach said, "Hey, we'll pay for your ticket back and your meal, but you're too small." So it's crazy the way this is now. A lot of kids see and hear all these things that's going on, and not understanding that it's not the reality, of, right now, what is it, 4,500?
19. That was Division I. It was 19,000. I came into the office on Friday, the first day the football portal opened. Overall, from all levels, it was 19,000 football players in the portal.
Yeah,
and that was just Division I.
And that's what's crazy across the board. Last year, what a lot of parents and athletes don't understand is that, yeah, it is a reset from recruiting college to high school in those spaces. But the thing is that what's happening, there's not that many scholarships just in the basis of, and just in the football realm, FCS and FBS, there's right around 20 to 30, let's just move it up, 30,000 scholarships. And over a third of them, they're already taken. So a lot of these kids who are they're getting the wrong information, false information. And just like when you come out of high school, you're not gonna go to a big school unless you're top 50, top 100. And it should be, these kids should know the same thing in regards to as they're coming out. So those are the things that we continuously have to make sure that we're not chasing. And it's a fit. Like, where do you fit at? In those situations. Now, from a standpoint of postgraduate or junior college, first Troy, when would postgraduate play? When would someone when would it make sense for a student athlete to go to a prep school?
Well, we're a little different because the kids, they report here in August and then they leave before Thanksgiving, so they basically do a semester. And our goal is to have them placed somewhere, whether it be Division I, Division II, or Division III, or NAIA, or junior college, for second semester. Right now, we're still trying to place guys. So on Martin Luther King Day and on President's Day, Fork Union Military Academy has traditionally had workouts and visits where guys don't have school, so they can come up here, they can take a look. We'll work them out. We'll test them in the 40 and the bench and all that stuff. And really, we're just trying to see, is it a good fit? So that's kind of how our process works. And it's $19,000 for a PG to come here, and we do have financial aid. And the offensive linemen get the most money. So if you know any big linemen, hit me up. They're a commodity, man.
Oh man!
Have you ever heard someone say, "I have too many linemen"?
Yeah,
right? No one's ever said that.
Never.
So.
Now, Hope, same question. When would junior college? When would that be? And then how does that? And what would be the best placement for an individual who's trying to make that move in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of transition just even in the 5 years that I've been in this space. That now I think it's really changed. I think that traditionally it may be students were coming to junior college because of academic needs. And that may be the case, certainly in some sports. In women's soccer specifically, it is not typically for academic. Our internationals are coming because maybe it's English as a second language. And they don't become qualifiers. So that's what you'll find a lot with our international players, is that they're non-qualifiers. So they use us as that springboard to come in, get their AA, and then they become automatically eligible at the Division I level. We'll see a lot of now, I get a lot of Division I and D2 transfers that will actually come to us for 1 year. Because again, if you come from Division I to us and then back out to Division I, you must graduate. So they'll come into us just to go out higher because of our program specifically. We're able to bring in maybe mid-major Division I, and those players traditionally are going out more P4 by the time they're done here at Daytona State. Our freshmen coming in, typically they've got plenty of offers, but maybe it's not the school that they were hoping for. Maybe it's not the level they were hoping for. Maybe it wasn't a financial package that the family could handle, because junior college is significantly cheaper to come through. I'm not sure about California. I've heard it's quite pricey still there, but a lot of families will utilize this platform to make it more financially, economical. And we kind of sell it like, hey, save your money, come to a junior college, spend a third of the price, and then you'll actually be able to, either market yourself out higher, get more financial aid as you move forward, save your family some money. So there's all different pathways of why a player may come our way, but we are definitely seeing more and more. We're really the second transfer portal now.
Okay.
And so, if schools are going in the transfer portal, or they're coming to the top NJCAA programs in the country, like we've already placed 3 of our players right now into Power 4 next year. So it just kind of depends on, what specifically or why they're there. But yeah, we've had a lot of success with our NCAA transfers coming into us and then moving out.
Okay. How does, and Brendan, this may you be, and all of y'all could probably answer this. When does the NCAA clearinghouse, tell us about how important the clearinghouse is and when athletes should start creating that profile?
I don't deal with the clearinghouse as much in my role and my purview. So I don't know if Hope or Troy, you guys want to jump in there.
Yeah, they can get a free account, at any time. But when it comes down to the NCAA determining whether they're eligible or going on a visit, an official visit, they have to pay, and
Mhm.
it's I think it's around $100. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but that's something free they can fill out, and then when the time comes, they can pay. But it's something that we take a lot of pride in here at Fork Union Military Academy, because a lot of people don't know this. Uh, After graduation, kids can retake one core class from high school. But if a kid has a 504 or an IEP, if they're in special education or have accommodations, they can retake 3 classes. So kids can come here to Fork Union and retake 2 and then do an online class. So they can actually get 3 classes, retake course from high school retaken if they come here. So Hope, if you know any more about the NCAA clearinghouse.
Yeah, I would just say it just depends on the players. I mean, we'll have some players that have gone through the clearinghouse. They know whether they're a qualifier or a non-qualifier. Typically, the internationals will know, because that's kind of why they've maybe popped into our area. But also, I think, for now, like our players that are, moving on from us, they're going through the clearinghouse now. Now, as a transfer, as long as they graduate, they can just do an amateurism certification. So it'll save them some money as far as that goes before they go into to their next program, because transfers are handled a little bit different. But so some of our girls are going through the process now. If they didn't go through it before, some of our players will have it coming in, and their accounts are active. So then it's just kind of updating it as we go. But definitely, if you have any questions about whether you're going to be a qualifier or not, you need to move through the process, because that's going to eliminate schools, right off the bat, early recognition. And maybe if you catch it early enough, maybe you can correct some things,
You got to have a 2.2 core GPA to go D2. You got to have a 2.3 core GPA, but that's still not going to get you into some schools.
Yeah.
It's just, it's up to the institution. So, make A's and B's, man.
Yep. And just like we said earlier, the higher your GPA, the more opportunities you're going to have. And that's the bigger part that we have to understand now, is that, from the FAFSA to all the parts that goes along with, your traditional means of getting into college, now athletes are going to have to do those things, because of the fact that, some athletes will be able to afford it. But then most of, and some won't. I know if I had to pay for college, I would have I would not have gone. And so, those things where now you have to really, look at the other side of the wheel, and just how can I go, and making sure, especially my parents here that have young student athletes, is making sure that their foundation is stands. And really, I've looked at it, and it's really a 10-year window. When you think about a doctor, it takes them 10 years to get the things necessary to become a doctor. And really, because 2 years from now you will be in college. So creating those financial fundamentals, obviously you're going to have your rec leagues and all that. But once you get in 7th grade, in middle school, you really start, feeling, okay, what sports are I really like? But then those, as you continue to grow in that sport, now you've either been recruited, you got to do the things necessary to be an athlete. And that's eating right, that's, running, lifting, speed and agility, all the things that's going to keep you healthy in those aspects. So, as an athlete, you have to know those parts.
Hey, Ken, I did talk to our admissions guy. So we have a dedicated staff member that all he does is admissions evaluations and works with students and families to get them into school, both in the portal and out of high school. And I asked him, what advice he had. He mentioned in California, for example, all the students at Cal State have to have a VPA, a visual arts class course out of high school. And like, if you know what the admission requirements are for those schools in advance, it sets you up well, where you don't have to try and scramble and take a computer science class or visual arts class late in the process. The other thing he said that he would recommend is what he's seen, the students who are the smoothest getting them in have counselors who have worked with athletes before. So the challenges he has with most kids coming out of high school are they maybe have a counselor that has never worked with the athlete before and doesn't know how to, get the documentation and the proper communication and stuff like that ahead of time. So those were the two pieces of advice that our dedicated admission staff member mentioned to me. And obviously the mandatory admission course is going to vary by state and different things like that. But making sure families do their research on schools that they're interested in, on what the requirements are for all the students, regardless of whether you're an athlete or student athlete, I think is important.
Exactly. And it is, and that's going to allow you to get into those schools, easier, especially if you have a school where you want to go to. And what the clearinghouse really does is it paints a picture of all the academic requirements you need, your math, your sciences, your Englishes, your foreign language. And so what that does is by connecting yourself into that space, it's going to allow you to understand, where you belong, where you fit, and then what class. I had a kid that was a track athlete, over at Dale a couple years ago. His senior year, he grew about 8 inches. They should have been playing football, but he grew about 8 inches, and he threw the daggone disc and a shot out of this world. And then he had an opportunity, but he had not taken one foreign language. And so I'm just like, how do you miss that? So those are those things where the clearinghouse is going to allow you to say, okay, these are the courses I have to take if I want to go and play sports. And I want to, because each college recommends it's a core curriculum requirement for each college that you're trying to go to. So, and it's a key to all of that. So, so the bigger part is now when we think about our fit, when you think about recruiting, evaluation, and fit, Hope, from a college coach's perspective, what matters beyond athletic ability when you're recruiting?
For me, it's culture. Very culture-driven coach. I believe in being team-led. So I think, for me, that's the biggest part, in painting a very clear and honest picture in the recruiting process. To get to know the players. For me, I mean, sometimes it's a vibe, right? You have a student athlete on campus and everything looks good on paper, but you're just not getting it. Sometimes it's just a bad feeling, or maybe it's a parent. Honestly, a parent has turned me off several times. Parent in the stands, and how they're acting, how they're speaking towards the officials, towards the coaches, right? So all of these things are really going into it. How do the players handle feedback from coaches as they're coming off the field? How do they celebrate their teammates? For me, I'm always looking at a lot of different things. So yeah, it may look great on paper, may look great at first glance, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to bring somebody into my family. And I love what I do. So I want to make sure that every day I go to work and do something that I love to do. I want to be around young women that I really want to be around, or for me, would be an incredible role model for my daughter, right? If she's out at those fields. So I think there's a lot of pieces into it, but for me, it's very culture driven outside of the technical execution, the physical execution, the learning ability, game understanding, right? Those are all your pillars, but there's a lot of things that will really make or break an athlete for me, and it's a lot of things that they don't even know we're looking at.
There it is. And Brendan, you're in some of those staff meetings, and what are the things, and in your recruiting the guys that you were in the coaching space, what have you heard from in your space? What are some red flags that you've heard of that really turn coaches off from recruiting people?
Yeah, Hope hit on them mostly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Family dynamics for sure. We just had a portal family here recently. Obviously won't say the family or what have you, but what happens on these visits, at least with football, for example, or most sports, the family will have an itinerary of who they're meeting. And so they'll get 15 minutes with me, then they'll get 15 minutes with the strength staff and so forth and so on. It's like a car wash, right? And then there's going to be dinners and breakfasts and all these sorts of things. Well, everybody that you're coming in contact with is an evaluator of you, right? And your character, right? So the general manager, for example, for football may come to me and say, hey, what did you think of, what did you see? right? And then we'll compare notes, or we'll, and it could be the smallest thing that we saw that kind of could turn you off. One of the things, this is a literal comment about a kid that we backed off of, that we actually brought on a visit in the portal. And these resources and visits are happening fast, right? Like we're having to make very quick evaluations on whether this person is a good culture fit, to Hope's point, or not. And he said, I talked to the kid for 30 minutes, like trying to connect with them, like who were your friends at the previous school you were at, thinking there was some commonality, because that's what we try to do, find commonality, right? And he said that kid was like, oh, I liked everybody. I was cool with everybody. Or there was no depth to, he couldn't figure out who the young man was. And, on top of the family dynamics and all those types of things added together, it didn't matter that he was originally from California. It didn't matter that he fit the prototypical, size for the position, metrics, whatever. It didn't matter that he came from a P4. It was like, I couldn't figure out who he was. And the family was a little off-putting, so they moved on. So that's just an anecdotal example that just happened recently here. So
yeah, and that's a key thing and really on both sides. When an athlete is being recruited, and on both sides, is that you also want to recruit, just like we're talking about how are you fitting academically, but also don't forget you also want to recruit the school that you're going to as well. So have questions that you want to ask the coaches, about stuff, and about the school. And because when you think about the fit, you have to fit in that culture that you're going to as well. And most of the time the coaches and they're going to look at, how does this individual fit in my space as well. So you have to also be okay with going from East Coast to West Coast, or the bottom of Georgia to New York, or from hot to cold. So those are things that you also want to think about when you're thinking about the fit over offers, because of the fact that those are the things that you got to figure out what those look like. So Troy, how do you help athletes understand fit? It's like we're talking about fit before they even step on campus.
Well, I think one thing I was thinking of, I start off with this: what's the NFL stand for? You know what it stands for.
Not for long.
And they start saying national fund. Now hold on. And I got all these jerseys up in my room of they've had 120 NFL players that have gone here. Vinny Testaverde, Eddie George, Plaxico Burress. It's been all kinds, but it's not for long. So you better have a backup plan. The backup plan is education. And, I love Alabama. I love Nick Saban. I love North Carolina. I love Bill Belichick, but they don't love me. And it's not who you love, it's who loves you, and money talks. And it doesn't matter about if it's Division I, Division II, or Division III, or NAIA. If they want you, or junior college, if they really, really want you, the sticker price may say $60,000, but the sticker price ain't the sticker price for everybody. And I don't care what level it is. Money talks. There's good players everywhere. So let's be realistic about this deal. The NFL stands for not for long. So you better get your education. You better have a backup plan.
Yep. Hope.
I was so into Troy. What was my question?
Right. How do you know when an athlete and they're getting ready to take that next step to go into, and they're looking at the different colleges, how do you help them understand their fit versus the campus or the logo?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for us, right? All of our players want to move on to great programs, but I think they're, for me, it's big questions of what's their playing style, right? We're a possession-based team. We build through the lines. Do they play that way, or in soccer, are they very direct, right? And if you're a midfielder and they're very direct and they're bypassing the midfield, this is probably not a great fit for you, right? It's easier for me. Obviously, I have a large network being in the game for 25 years now, but if those are coaches that are outside my network, that's where I kind of like trying to figure out, is this going to be a good coach fit for this type of player, right? And what kind of environment does this player thrive in? So I think it's really getting my players, the ones that are moving on, like, how do you ask the right questions, right? Because a lot of people ask questions, but they're not the right questions, right? And so coaches can kind of move around areas if you don't ask the right questions. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to say is, like, you've got to ask the right questions to figure out, is this the right fit for me? Does it have your major? What is your opportunity to play there? Let's not just look at, I fight a lot of times when players like, it's not a good program. Yeah, I get that you're coming from national championships and they want to win, right? That's what they're used to. But there's still a lot of great programs. The reason why they're recruiting you is because they want to win, right? So they need to get better. So trying to make sure, how do you feel about having to fight for your playing time? What is the opportunity for these individuals? Like, where does the coach see you? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years to come in that position, make an immediate impact? So I think those are big things. A lot of times the kids will forget about my major because it's like, oh, P4 is after me. Well, if you're going into nursing, all of a sudden now you don't want to go into nursing, like, what's going on, right? So I think those are some of the fits, but to me, it's about asking the right questions. And I say this because I think one kid really challenged me in the recruiting process. An incoming freshman, we committed her. It was a great question. She said, what are your non-negotiables? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, let's talk about this. You're right. Made me think about, what are my non-negotiables? And I think, wow, what a great question for an athlete to ask a coach, because right there, how you're going to be evaluated, what the expectations are. Like, it's clear and it's cut. There's no kind of moving around this, right? And so, I just encourage players just to really ask the right questions and make sure that it's all a fit, but be open. Obviously, we're in Florida. Players want to stay in Florida. We're close to the beach. But we've got to be open. There's so many amazing schools out there, great coaches, great programs. So, just try to encourage them to be really open-minded and not just close to like, hey, Division I want to go Power 4, or like, there's so many great programs out there.
There it is. Brendan, can you touch on this space any?
Yeah, just they hit on it all in terms of fit and culture, and asking the right questions, understanding what's important to you, right? Like, is playing time important? Is development important? Is weather important? Is uniforms important? Is playing in front of a sold out arena important? Like, you just have to come up before you make that trip, come up with those things that are your non-negotiables, probably, right? And then evaluate each school up against, not in the moment, not maybe not in real time, right? Like, you don't want to look like that person to the coaches where you're just tediously taking notes, but when you get back from that visit, look at that objective list of things that you had written down, and that's where your family and parents can help you, right? Because a lot of times student athletes don't have enough life experience. I didn't have enough life experience at 17, 18. I went on my visit to Virginia Tech and it felt like home. It felt good. Right. And I was like, I'm here, right? Versus, when I visited UVA, they were going through a coaching change. The players who were there weren't the new coaches' players. It was a weird dynamic. It didn't feel like home. So I ended up being a Hokie, right? So I think parents collectively, make it a family decision. If you're fortunate to have that family dynamic, or a coach that you trust, an advisor that you trust, someone you trust, that you all can see things independently and then compare notes with each other, but have those non-negotiables yourself, so that you aren't, like Hope said, flying in the wind. One day you wanted to be a nurse and now you don't want to be a nurse anymore because you weren't tethered to your non-negotiables, so.
And that's the bigger part of all of it, is that when you look at an athlete, and we always say you have to have a backup plan as an athlete, because you never know when that career-ending injury or it just stops. And it's not necessarily that. This is at some point, either your body or time is going to stop you from playing. But what is that next step for you as an athlete? And academics is that space. You can be in, as you see, you have three different. Troy went into education, Hope went into college coaching, and Brendan went into administration. You know, I've been in all those spaces. And so the thing is, figuring out where you want to be when that time comes is really one of those part of the decisions where what's going to help you with your fit. What do I want to become after I finish playing sports, and where and what I want to do? And so there's all type of areas you can still be around sports and still, you know, but it's just not going to be in the physical standpoint. So understand that space that you're trying to do and how you're trying to navigate, you know, as you continue to, you know, go on this journey. So Brendan, from a compliance perspective, what are the NCAA rules families most often misunderstand?
So once again, because of the seat I sit in, I'm not a subject matter expert on this, but I did go talk to our compliance staff before this call and ask them what advice they would have to families. So they said out of high school, the one thing they would advise families is you have 5 years to play for right now, right? That could change. The NCAA could change the rule. That they just had the Pavia rule for the 1 year where some JUCO kids got time back. But if they had eligibility left, it didn't even matter. They didn't get an extra year tacked on. But currently the rules say, according to our compliance office, that you have 5 years to play for. The only sport that allows you to play any competition and still maintain a red shirt is football. If you step foot on a track, a pool, a court, a field in another sport, that year counts against you from an eligibility standpoint. So they wanted to make sure the families understood that now there are ways that you can petition the NCAA to get your clock back through injuries or different things that may happen, but just understanding right now the way the rules set up. And when I say 5 to play 4, what they potentially are proposing or trying to get to is 5 years to play 5, and giving students an extra year to play their competition instead of 5 to play 4. You'd have 5 to play 5, and they get rid of maybe some of the waivers and injury waivers and different things like that. So that's what they wanted me to mention. And then from the portal perspective, because like I said, in my opinion, what I see every day is the high school recruit turns into the portal recruit very quickly. And then how Troy mentioned, he had a student athlete leave and go D2 and then D1 within 3 years of being in high school, on top of the prep year. So what they mentioned is that be mindful that maybe your credits aren't all going to transfer from school to school and things like that. So, find, to Hope's point, find somewhere where you, and Troy's point, find somewhere where you feel comfortable fitting, irregardless of a coaching change or injury. You're committed to that institution and you want to get your degree from that place. You feel good about that place, because the moment you go in the portal, you could be a junior where you are. We have some student athletes right now. They would graduate in May if they stayed here. They're leaving for money and opportunity to play at maybe a different level, and they're going to go, now they're 2 semesters away from graduating, plus summer school and all that type of stuff. So just be mindful that credits don't always transfer, and that your clock starts as soon as you leave high school, for the most part, except for maybe even prep year. Troy, you can speak to that, and Hope, you can speak to that a little more.
Yeah, and both of those questions, I know, Troy, explain how prep work, and then Hope. And first, I want to jump to Hope first. Hope, I guess it was last year. What ended up happening was, was put out that junior college now, it doesn't count towards your eligibility. Is that true, or how does it work?
No, that is not true. It does count towards your eligibility. It was a 1-year, one-time rule. The Paco rule from Vanderbilt, I think was his name. And I did have some athletes that got an additional year back due to that, but it was just to that class. If you were graduating that year and you had used up your eligibility and you played junior college, you got 1 additional year. So we did have some players impacted by that. But right now, as it stands, yes, our eligibility does count against Division II, Division III, any NCAA school. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Troy, how does prep school work?
Prep school just, Fork Union goes down as your 4th year in high school. So you'll have 2 high schools for your 4th year. And one thing I want to mention is, there's a lot of kids that are reclassing in high school. So once you reclass in high school, your first 4 years is locked. Like that 5th year, in high school before you graduate, none of those core classes can count. And not a lot of people know that. And a lot of kids are reclassing and they're expecting those fifth year grades to count, but they're locked. The only way that you can get it unlocked is to graduate and then, do a +1 or a +3 if you have an IEP. And about making like college decisions, one thing I always tell our guys is it isn't about making the right decision. It's about making the decision right. Like, it doesn't matter where Ken Oxendine went. Ken Oxendine was going to do what was right. He was going to do his best. He was going to treat people how he wants to be treated. And when you do that, you're going to be successful. So, like, it just works out, man. And, like, so, it's a tough world, man. It's a tough business. So, you need to do things the right way.
There it is. There it is. Appreciate that, you guys. Brendan, now let's get into an arena of yours. How, when you think about the understanding, and there's a difference between the, and you made it as there's a difference between the NIL and the coalition, right?
And say NIL and
or does the coalition still exist? That's the question, more or less.
Collectives?
Yeah,
maybe?
the collective. My bad. Yeah, the collective.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'll give you there's two things. NIL has kind of gotten co-opted into one thing, but really it's two separate things. So NIL is traditionally marketing, endorsements, your ability to endorse a brand and make some money as an influencer or promoting the local pizza shop, and the pizza shop pays you $500 and a free pizza every Friday. That's NIL, right? Like, you're using your celebrity status to endorse a product. That's what NIL was intended to be, right? What we have now, it's kind of been co-opted with the collectives at first, and now the schools, is called revenue share. I'll just skip ahead in the program and call it a revenue share, right? So what revenue share and the house settlement that just happened allows is for the school to now compensate the student athlete in addition to scholarships or in lieu of scholarship, right? So we have some Olympic sports where, rev share money has now supplemented a scholarship that they couldn't offer, right? So they might only have, let's use baseball, for example. Our baseball team might have 11 scholarships. They are used to divvying that up. Well, now they can give some students money through rev share and still give other students some scholarship, and essentially it nets out to being the same thing, right? That money's meant to be used for room and board or books and tuition or what have you. So each sport handles it differently. Obviously football, men's and women's basketball, those sports are usually the money's in addition to. When you get into baseball, soccer, tennis, golf, those types of sports, usually the coach is trying to supplement their scholarship limit with that. So those are two different things. Sometimes they're called the same thing, but they're two different things.
Hold on a second. I guess because that was the biggest thing because of understanding those spaces, and I appreciate that. How should student athletes think about the NIL?
I mean, it's tricky, right? So if you're, like I said, because each sport is different, so I'll just try and be as general as possible because I don't know which sports we have on this call, right? But like, if you're in men's basketball, football, women's basketball, I'll just start with those grouping because those tend to be the three revenue share sports. At some places like Nebraska, you can throw volleyball in there, depending on the place. Wrestling at Iowa State, right? They're going to probably share revenue. So it depends on the sports, but the revenue plus scholarship sports, get a lawyer, have an attorney. Don't hire an agent who is not, a competent professional agent. Don't hire someone who's inexperienced to represent you and your family. If you're in those sports and those buckets and someone is talking to you about NIL and rev share, have an attorney, have a agent, and don't go find an agent who reached out to you on social media and says they want to represent you, right? Like ask them who they represent, what they've done, what their qualifications are. Do they have a law degree? Have they been NFL PA certified or what have you, NBA PA cert? Like have some credentials as best you can, right? Because what we see a lot is a lot of these agents are not accredited. They don't have to be accredited in college. Like I could roll out of bed tomorrow and say I'm an agent for kids and represent them. And what they're trying to do is honestly, make money off of the student athlete, right? So the NFL, the range for compensation for an agent at the professional level is usually 0 to 3 to 5%, right, of a contract, of a playing contract. What we saw early on was agents were charging 20%, 30% in the college space. What we've seen now is like the word has gotten out and now they're in the 5 to 7, 8% range. But nonetheless, remember that the agents work for you. And that you don't work for the agent. So if the agent's trying to steer you somewhere or tell you to do this or do that, in most cases, what I've seen is the schools will reach out to the student athlete and the family themselves. And then it's up to you as the family to loop in the agent to have those business conversations. I will say that I think it's a good thing because I think it helps create a bridge, the gap between your family having to talk business. You almost have a spokesperson for you where you can get to know the coaching staff and make it about playing time and fit and culture and academics. And then you can have someone independent talk about, all right, how much can you offer? What guarantees do we have? That sort of thing. So I would say the one piece of advice I would give families navigating it is if you're in that grouping of sport where you're a high profile sport at a school that they're talking NIL on rev share, get representation. That's probably the best piece of advice I could give you.
Love it, love it. And that's last year in our conversation with Gary Downs, Downs' sons, Josh and Caleb Downs. One of the things he said, the first thing he did was he got a financial consultant, someone that can help, take care of the money, and also someone that could also speak to the language that is now out there. So those are things that are very key, to those things. Hey, Hope, do you see, and how much of that do you see from a standpoint of compliance issues that show up during recruiting for coaches' perspective?
More so, obviously, we're dealing with it on the out, like as our players are moving on, not necessarily within us, because I mean, the good thing too, like with us, our compliance is a little bit different. So you just have to graduate from high school. That's your main eligibility piece with the 2.0. And then, we actually, you can have several gap years. You can actually go play pro up until the age of 21 now, and then come to junior college. So there's a lot of different avenues for us in that compliance piece now, but we deal more with the compliance piece going out to ensure players are graduating if they're non-qualifiers. Are they 424 transfers? Are we hitting progress towards degree? If they're going to go Division II, do they have their math, science, Englishes? So it just kind of depends on which level. Obviously, I have a background in compliance. I probably know way more than any NJCAA coach should know. But, and I can't keep up with it anymore because it's literally changing day by day. So I really just go, I don't know anymore, but we know enough to ensure that our athletes are on track with that. So I think those are big pieces. We do not deal anything with NIL revenue sharing, but my players going out are, and it's mind baffling. I had a player last year signed to go to UCLA with $150,000 revenue sharing deal. Like, what? It's crazy. So unfortunately I can't help navigate with any of that. And they did have a lawyer involved. So again, great information from Brendan on that. I actually learned a ton. So thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it.
There it is. We always learn. That's the thing is we got to stay green. You don't want it to be a red apple. You'll be a green apple. We got to keep growing and make sure, our kids know that. So this is, we're coming down to the end of the slope tonight. When you think about, one thing families should stop doing, what are one thing, all three of you, give me one thing that they should stop doing when you really think about, the process of all of it? What's one thing that they should stop doing that could really benefit them?
stop taking over. Let them be in charge of their own journey. You know, I cannot stand when a parent emails me and wants to like try to recruit their kid for me. I'm like, have your kid contact me. I'm not going to coach you. I think parents are important in the decision-making process and I want them involved, but this has to be the player's journey. They have to go after what they want. They need to be fully in control of that. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Like, don't be a snowplow, don't be a helicopter, don't be a mower. Like, let them fail, let them, you know, have hard conversations with their coaches, and encourage them to build relationships. I think when their coaches, as they go through the process, when you go on your visits, you need to drive that journey. It doesn't need to be the parent driving that entire process. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, let them stand on their feet and, you know, do the homework before you get to where you need to be. And then just kind of best thing to do is, you know, be in the room, listen to what's being said, but let the student athlete drive that journey.
Mm-hmm. Brendan?
Yeah, I would kind of reiterate what Hope said there. You know, just I fortunately haven't experienced too many bad parents in that capacity, right? Like, I think what I would say is just remember that you all are a unit, you know, or you know, come into don't treat this decision any differently than maybe you all treat other family decisions, right? Like, so if you all are big into talking through what you're going to do for your summer vacation, or what travel league you're going to play for, or what club team you're going to play for, or what cleats you're going to buy, if you guys make consultative decisions all the time, then I think you treat that like this process too, because it's good to get different perspectives. No different than we're a staff and administrator and you're being evaluated by multiple people. I think it's helpful to have, like Hope said, be in the room, listen, pick up on coaching tendencies. Oh, that coach said, oh, well, that coach said this and that coach said that, right? It's good to be there and be present. But yeah, to Hope's point, let the student athlete drive the boat, and you just be there to kind of make sure they've thought through their decision and provide your wisdom to them.
Troy?
Well, there's a lot of things. Stop worrying about things you can't control. And I was just thinking about Eddie Whitley, who's from Virginia Tech. You never know where these coaches are going to end up. You know, Eddie Whitley was an assistant at Bridgewater. He's a Division III. He's a Division III coach, and the next year he's at JMU, and now he's at UCLA. So, like, don't treat everybody with respect. You know, treat the guy at the Division III school the same way you treat Alabama, and it's about being a good person. And you know, any opportunity is a good opportunity. You know, what are you looking for in a school? They always ask that to kids. I'm looking to get a good education and a chance to win a championship. And stop talking. You know, because that's what it's about. So that's what I got, Ken.
Yeah.
When I was coaching, I had a kid running back. He had some opportunities, and his dad wanted him to go to Georgia Tech. Well, what ended up happening was he didn't go to he didn't take the scholarship offers he had. He ended up going to Georgia Tech, and when it all came down to it, he went in on an academic scholarship, and he still had to pay that tuition, you know, on half of it. And so when it came down to it, his dad didn't pay that tuition when he left. So realistically, the other side to it is, just like Hope was saying, just like that, and just like Brendan, you want it as a conversation that, okay, we want to be able to see you play, want to be a part of you, but also, and the bottom line is that you got to advocate for yourself. You know, you got to teach someone how to advocate for you, teach you how to advocate, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to be making a lot of decisions on your own. And so, go ahead.
Just one piece of advice, kind of to what Troy was saying. So we've recently had staff turnover. Our defensive coordinator took a job in Nebraska, and he took a position coach with him. We had a couple position coaches leaving. The way this portal and this thing goes, to kind of to Troy's point, is as we bring in new coaches, those coaches are going back into their Rolodex of who they recruited, not just who they coached at another place, but, oh, I recruited this kid when I was at this place, or this kid came on a visit when I was at this place. And, that's literally how these coaches are spreading their webs to, differentiate who they go after in the portal is, well, what connections do I have to what athletes, right? So to Troy's point about treat everybody the right way, you never know where these people are going to end up, is golden advice. So I just had to say that.
Awesome. And it's networking. The thing is that like I said, from that you start at 7th grade, teaching your middle schooler how to conversate, talk to people, talk to adults. When you get to high school, now you're connecting the dots with the different individuals that you're dealing with, because you never know, if that guy goes somewhere else in the country or in an aspect. Because what's so crazy, someone that I coached, I had, when I was coaching NFL Europe, I coached Cliff Kingsbury. So the thing is, you never know where someone's going to go and what they're going to be, when now you have an opportunity not only to play, but then also to potentially also them bring you in because of the relationship that you've built with that individual. So those are things that we got to continue to understand. Now, what is one thing that they should start doing early? Brendan?
Start doing early, I would say, is identify potential schools that are, in your region, in your footprint, that you want to visit, you want to camp, you like their style of play. Start identifying and being, don't be a novice. If you're on this call tonight or you're watching this replay of this video, 9 times out of 10, you're probably someone who's intentional about your future or your child's future. So I would say make sure you start scoping out the potential. And to Troy's point, man, anywhere that wants you is a good place, right? So don't get caught up in the brand and the name. Get caught up in who wants you. So
I would say, definitely, like Brendan said, start early with your reach schools, your safety schools, your target schools. Start making those lists. Definitely, a lot of people say, oh, ID camps are money makers. I promise you guys, they're not mass money makers. That's not what these coaches are in there for business, but it's a great way to get a good look at, the current players. What's the style like? What's the coach like? What's that college like? Again, coaches honestly recruit players that they see the most, the ones that are contacting the most, the ones that are consistently sending updates, that end up on their campuses. If you think, hey, if my kid's good enough, they're going to find them. Oh boy, there's so many athletes out there. That is a very small percentage. So you really, really have to market yourself. And there's great ways to do that. Social media is a huge one now. If you're constantly coming up on my feed, I'm probably watching it. So there's things, keeping your social media feed up and new with highlights and, how many posts you're doing. But again, it really is. Coaches have limited time. They're not watching long highlight films. So again, just the more you can get on their radar, the better. I think that's probably the case. I can't speak for any other sport, but I promise you, the more frequently a coach sees a player, the more enticing, the more you market yourself. And if you really want to be at our institution, those are the kind of kids we really want to be there. So again, if I have to go beat down a door and try to convince a kid to come to my program, it's probably not going to be the best fit. So again, I was just laughing about a player that just really recruited us. And I just knew maybe that they had a lot more development still to do, but she kind of wore me down in a great way. And I brought her in and she just left to go to a P4. So it's you just never know. And again, I encourage, just like Brendan and Troy said, networking. Half of my 424 transfers are kids that I actually tried to initially recruit, didn't take our offer, went Division I, D2, and now they end up back with us. So, you just never know. And then I have colleges that are placing kids with me. They'll call me. I have a player right now from Purdue. Coach called, put her with us for 2 years, and then we'll put her back out. So again, this world is all about networking in any of these businesses. So again, be a good person, make good interactions with any coaches you come across. Don't snub the junior colleges. Don't snub the D3s, because you just never know. One of those coaches can end up on a school of your dreams and a staff, and they're going to remember how you acted about it. So yeah, just be open and be grateful for every opportunity that comes your way, because you're still one of the small percentages that's going to have an opportunity to play in college.
Yeah, and just to your point, there's 380,000 high school participate in women's soccer in high school. And so, and out of that number, there's only 27,000, 30,000 that play in college. So when you look at those numbers, and for football, there's 1 million athletes who stand out in football and basketball, and it's in the thousands for every sport, hundreds of thousands in every sport. The one that has the most for participate is soccer and football, when you really think about it. So understand the numbers also are those pieces and parts. And on the other side of it, when you do have, I was fortunate to have from USC to Florida to Penn State, recruit me. So the thing is that, if you're in the space where you're being recruited highly, one of the advice that my coach gave me was by October, break it down to 20 to 20. By November, now break it down to 10. And then have your other 5. But also now, the coaches do want to see you. They want to see what you look like. They want to see you. Just like I was saying earlier, there's the kid that was going from the one college and the Power 5 student. They saw him when he saw the size of the kid. He said, "No, go ahead, get back on the plane. We'll pay for your dinner, but we don't want you." So the eyeball test is the other side of it. Is but the bottom line is what is your fit, but then what is your effort level in the space you're doing. And another thing before we jump off this topic is that understand that your film is your resume. So I had one of my defensive coordinator when I was at Georgia Southern. He would pull out back in the day when they had VHSs and CDs. And it was crazy because he'd put the tape in, he'd fast forward it 4 times. If he didn't see that athlete moving with a motor, he would say he'd put it in the trash. And those are the things you make sure whatever your athlete puts on film, someone's going to say, "Oh, I like that person," and that they're moving around fast. But now moving on to the last question on this, what is a misconception that you guys wish would go away?
On my end is that, everybody's rich and everybody's making all this money. There's a very small percentage of student athletes who are fortunate to get NIL deals. And, I always tell our student athletes, keep the main thing, right? Like, the reason you're here is to get a great education, to play a sport that you've loved most likely since you were a child. Don't put the money in front of those things, because when you put the money in front of those things are getting away, right? The money is a byproduct of your production, your character, your work ethic, all those types of things. The money doesn't come before those things, right? So I always tell everybody, keep the main thing. Do not chase rev share. Do not chase money. Go out and be the best player, person, teammate you can be, and the money will take care of itself. And Ken, I got to hop, but this was
okay.
awesome.
That's cool.
And I'm happy to come back
now, anyways.
Anytime.
So, I appreciate you, Brendan. And hey, continue to grow, man.
Thank you.
Love you much.
You hope.
All right. Bye, Brendan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, obviously, I've been in, every space except for Division III, but I will speak specifically about the NJCAA just because it's really opened my eyes as well, is, hey, don't knock it. And I think the misconception a lot of times is players go there because they academically can't get into places. That is not always the case. Players go there because they're not good enough to play at an NCAA institution. That is not the case. And I think you're seeing that landscape really change in the NJCAA, and it can be an incredible platform for maybe student athletes that are late developers, families that cannot financially afford maybe or foot the bill for maybe partial scholarships or whatever. Maybe it is an academic path, but there's a lot of reasons to maybe explore that opportunity. And I think, like I said, the landscape is really, really changing and is becoming a huge transfer portal for student athletes to go in, get a great education at minimal cost, and then kind of continue their development and springboard themselves into something great.
Awesome. Now and we have Hope left on the portal, but I am a very like the space that I can answer most questions as well. So nonetheless, are there any questions by any of our parents that's in here tonight? If we can't answer it, I'll get the answer because I know people. And with that said, appreciate your Hope.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Ken. Anytime.
Oh, anytime. And the bigger part, I think the bottom line with NCAA and where we are as a unit now with this process is understanding that this is a networking process. Get your athletes to understand how to network and speak in the different spaces, and understand, you never know who you're going to be in front of, or how those people are going to affect you later on down the road. I'll send out all the stuff here. A lot of things that we go across, of course, over the course of the year. NCAA website is obviously one of the ones, and seeing those core curriculum classes, and then everything else that you have to go along with this. But then also, understand that every high school has a counselor. Reach out to that counselor to help them help you with any information that they have. And then also, if they aren't, privy or, vast knowledge in the sports world, email me, again, email me so I can help you in those spaces and connect you with people that can help you navigate those parts. And then your grass representative. When you think about FAFSA, when you think about every high school in Chesterfield has a grass representative. I know I'm pretty sure in the Richmond as well, and the surrounding Tri-Cities have a grass representative. Here are the grass advisor list is on their website. As you see, it's grass4virginia.org. But also just, I'm in the wrong space. There we go. But also the bigger part is thank you to everybody. Thank you for my panelists, and thank you for those who are here. January 26th, we'll be talking about 2-year colleges, Hope. And
all right.
We'll have a Bright Point representative that'll be here speaking on that, and how to navigate that world, and other pieces. Other spaces that we have virtual conversations with is Coffee and Conversation. Our next conversation, which is the 14th next week, is on vaping, talking with kids about tobacco and vaping, and how those affect the body and how it changes, and the leading space that's go. And then our middle management, and that's the programs for our middle schoolers, study skills that stick, helping your child develop effective habits. And that could be even the high schoolers, as I know high schoolers that still have a hard time with the study skills. If you have any questions, please email me. Here's my email, ken_oxendine@ccps.net. Either you can before meeting, after meeting, or whatever the case. And again, remember that you have a representative at your school that can help you in all those spaces. Appreciate you all again, and thank you, and have a good night.